This week's episode of the ArtTactic Podcast is brought to you by ArtTactic.com, where you can check out our latest report, the Contemporary Art Market Confidence Report. Our art market confidence indicators show that positive sentiment is returning to the art market, and our listeners of the podcast get a special 15% discount on this report as well as all reports on ArtTactic.com by using the promo code PODCAST15. Thanks for listening to the ArtTactic Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Green. Well, we've covered a range of topics in the art world on the podcast. One area we haven't explored as frequently is the evolving art scene in the Middle East. But in recent years, we've seen some fascinating developments there. From the expansion of biennales to auction houses strengthening their presence in the region. In fact, Sotheby's is about to take a major step with its inaugural auction in Saudi Arabia. Titled Origins, the auction occurs on February 8th. In this week's episode of the podcast, we're joined by Ashkan Baghestani, Senior Vice President and Head of the Contemporary Day Sale in New York, as well as the lead behind Sotheby's first ever auction in Saudi Arabia. In our conversation, he gives us a preview for the upcoming sale, and he also shares his insights into the auction house's broader strategy for the region and offers his perspective on how the art market there has developed and where it's headed next. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to be here. I love your podcast, so thank you for having me.
Ashkan, thanks so much for joining us. Oh, absolutely. Thanks for the kind words, and it's a pleasure to have you. So, as we said, Sotheby's is set to hold its inaugural auction in Saudi Arabia, titled Origins. It occurs on February 8th. Yeah, to start things off, what factors drove the decision to expand into this market, and how does this auction align with Sotheby's broader strategy for the Middle East?
You know, we've been invested in the Middle East for almost 2 decades now. We have an office in Dubai. We had an office in Doha. We've been very active in the region. We have a big team. And we felt that with the current, in the last 5 years, development of the cultural program in Saudi, the Vision 2030, and the amount of investment and excitement around the cultural programming here, that it made total sense for us to be present. We incorporated last year. And that's the culmination of many years of supporting actually culture initiatives in the kingdom. We started in 2015-16 when they had what they called back then Jeddah Art Week. And it just feels like a natural evolution of our business. We've also partnered up with the First Islamic Biennale. We partnered up with the Contemporary Art Biennale to bring, more educational initiatives. But overall, the growth and the growth of the client base here has reached sort of new levels, and the numbers are increasing sale by sale, season by season. And this is where a lot of the focus internationally in terms of the art world is at the moment. They've done an incredible job, and I've been coming consistently in the last 3-4 years in Saudi Arabia between Jeddah, Riyadh, Dammam, and other regions to really develop institutionally their cultural program. Between biennales and art festivals and museums. They're building 10 plus museums across the next 5 to 10 years. So there's so many exciting things happening here, but the commercial side of it seems pretty new, and that's where we come into play. You have some great galleries here like Attar or Hafiz Gallery and a few others that have been very active for 10, 15 years, and they're part of the landscape. But I think we want to see commercially what can Saudi bring in a country that has a huge demographic. We've had auctions in Qatar, we've had auctions in the UAE. This is a country of 35 million plus inhabitants compared to the other Gulf countries. This is a much larger beast, and between the support of the Ministry of Culture and many other endeavors, I think it makes total sense for us to be here. And again, we look at the numbers, but we'll also look at the current landscape. And I don't know on your end, but the name I've been hearing in the last few years about the next big story in the art world is Saudi Arabia. Like we used to hear about, China 15, 20 years ago when they started a lot of their culture initiatives. And I've been coming again consistently here, and I've rarely seen so much excitement, so much buzz, and so much energy um, around the cultural world and the art world. And lastly, I think there's opportunities to build a whole new client base here. It's a very educated client base, not necessarily for the auction world, but just in general. People are hungry for art. They want to learn, they want to see, they want to understand. It's a developing market and with a young demographic, and I think a growing collector base and expanding art community. I think we're just at the beginning of that, and we want to be positioned smartly to be at the forefront of that adventure.
Yeah, I agree. I certainly think there's been a lot of developments in the art scene, other aspects of culture there in the last few years. For our listeners who may not be closely following the evolution of the art scene in Saudi Arabia, I know you touched on it a little bit, but how would you characterize its current state, and how does it compare to other hubs in the Middle East?
It's a good question, Adam. I think it's hard after 5 years to sort of characterize it or describe it. But what I'll say is, in terms of scale, it's a massive country with very different regions, and every region has its own sort of history and its own sort of community, and that's one very important factor. But you have a country that has a huge heritage across thousands of years, so they're bringing that back to the modern times. The Nabatean sites like Alula and the old city of Jeddah, and Jeddah was a huge port, and then Mecca and Medina. So and obviously the big capital. So I feel they're trying to look at their pre-Islamic heritage, the Islamic heritage with the Islamic Art Biennale, and then the contemporary one, because you have a huge group of contemporary and a huge community of contemporary artists here. They're very active. They're very focused on conceptual, on multimedia. They've been in some of them from an earlier generation from the late 90s. There's a lot of question as to how you bring your Islamic heritage into contemporary practice. And so that's where you have two biennales that are distinctly very different in two different cities. One's in Jeddah, one's in Riyadh. So there's a lot of important questions being asked, and sort of a lot of academia around all of those things. Now, it's a country that for many decades didn't do much for its cultural program, and now they're full steam ahead investing billions into this program. And I think the three other main hubs you could look at in the region is Doha, which also has been at the forefront of building their cultural program with the amazing collections and museums they have there, the Mataf, the Arab Art Collection, the museum, the National Museum of Qatar, and many other, the Islamic Art Museum. And then you have Abu Dhabi, obviously, with Saadiyat Island, with the Guggenheim, with the Louvre, and so many others. And then you have, obviously, Dubai, which is a bit more commercial, and then Sharjah. So Saudi sort of, I guess, at the beginning of its journey, where other regions maybe they have a more mature, maybe art community on an institutional level. But I guess what really differentiates for me Saudi from the rest is the scale. This is, again, not a small country. It's a huge country. It's almost the size of the continent of the Middle East. When you think about it, it's bang in the middle. It's also a country that hosts millions of pilgrims every year for the Hajj or for Umrah to go to Mecca. And it's a country that is sitting on a huge amount of artistic wealth, and they are hiring and putting in place, especially in the cultural world and in the Ministry of Culture, a lot of the youth. And I think for me, the biggest difference coming from the West or coming from New York or Paris or London where I lived is I meet all these amazing people that are driving the sort of Vision 2030 for culture and for the arts. They're all my age. They're all people who, some of them studied abroad because, in the 90s and 2000s, Saudi had a huge program to send a lot of its citizens abroad, students abroad to study. And a lot of them are coming back to build the future of their country, which is for me so exciting and such a great example of what you can achieve by putting the youth in power. And being in these events and in these places and these important moments, and you see that the youth is actually taking control of the narrative and bringing this country to the next level in terms of its cultural programming is amazing. I think that's the real difference for me, versus, I don't know, hiring foreign academics or foreign brains to come and build the cultural landscape of your country and the identity. They're building it from inside, and I think that is really impressive.
Yeah, that's an interesting point I didn't think about, and perhaps differentiates it from other emerging art scenes around the world. So the Origins auction, it's occurring on February 8th, and it features an eclectic mix of fine art, sports memorabilia, watches, jewelry, handbags. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the works that will be in the auction, as well as more broadly, what was the strategy behind the curation of this inaugural sale?
We took a long time to sort of figure out what kind of auction we wanted. And I'll start, I guess, with a few stats on Saudi. Over the past 5 years, we've seen the number of market participants increase exponentially. The buyers from Saudi have increased by 35% since 2019. And the number of bidders has increased by almost 50% since 2019. And just last year, we almost had 40% of bidders from Saudi were completely new to us. So clearly there is a lot of Saudi clients and collectors are entering the market. And we're looking at which categories they enter through. And a lot of it is luxury, but also a lot of it is fine art. So we thought to cast a wide net for inaugural auction, and we don't have a crystal ball. We have a first mover's advantage, but that also means we need to then collect the data and understand what is the client base here and what they're interested in. And the way we can do that is by offering the widest range of items possible in a field. So that's why we've decided to go from modern, impressionist to contemporary in terms of fine arts. With some Latin works, and obviously with a strong component of Middle Eastern modern contemporary art, because you're always, from my experience working in more regional markets at first, before moving to the contemporary sphere, you're always more attracted at first to art from your own region, art you can connect to on a political, social, or simply artistic level. It's easier to relate to your own history. And then the first clients I started working with would all collect Middle Eastern art, and now a lot of them just collect contemporary art or modern art. So that was also a strong component and a requirement for us to have a strong Middle Eastern section. So we cast a wide net between global fine arts and then jewelry, watches, because Saudi is a huge, huge market for luxury. I mean, the biggest brands, whether it's Kering, LVMH, or even Richemont, when I hear the events they've been doing here around jewelry and are insane. They go all out, and it's a clientele, as you know, that's very focused on luxury, but also on sport memorabilia, and that's why we decided to do a 2-part evening auction. Evening for the prestige, because we do those the best. Ollie Barker is actually our star auctioneer, going to come and auctioneer the fine art section, which is the first part of the auction, and then one of our great auctioneers from the jewelry department will auction the luxury side. But that's why we divided the sale in 2 parts, fine arts and luxury. And we'll see. I think you and I will have to discuss after the sale to understand who are the participants. And I'm sure we're going to meet a lot of new people. But the last thing I'll say, Adam, is this is a very young country. I think 60+% of the population is under 35. There's a huge middle class. And I think 30% of our bidders just from Saudi last year, in 2024, were under 40. So there's a lot of wealth in the hands of people of my generation or a bit older. And I'm interested to see what they're looking at and what they're interested in purchasing or collecting and so on.
So you just mentioned that there are a lot of younger and potentially newer collectors in Saudi Arabia. As that art market continues to develop, what is Sotheby's approach in terms of how to effectively engage and really educate these newer collectors in the region?
I think we engage them live, where every night, for example, it was non-negotiable. We were not just going to come here, do an auction, and not talk about our passion for the arts, but also the market and what it means, because a lot of people that are going to come are not necessarily well versed in the auction world. and all the fields we offer and the intricacies and the nuance of the art market. So every night we're offering 1 hour talks on very various subjects. The first one will be how to collect. What does it mean to collect? What do you have to look at? Whether it's a watch or an artwork, provenance, quality, etc. Then we have a talk one night with an academic around digital art. Why is digital art so important in today's world? You know, I'm sitting in my hotel room right now, and last November when I was here, they had just unveiled their new Museum of the Future, which is dedicated to digital art. From the pioneers from the 70s, who were the first to bring sort of feed algorithms that would then produce an artwork up to today. So it felt very topical. Then we're going to have a talk with the Botero family, who Botero is very much loved in Saudi Arabia. There are a lot of collectors that have Boteros here. So the family is going to come do a talk about Botero. And then we're going to talk about the Middle Eastern art market, and then a talk about jewelry and what to look at in a jewelry piece. So we're here to educate the crowd. We're here to share some of our knowledge, but you don't establish a new collector base or grow a new collector base without educating them. We're doing tours every day. We're asked to go to A, B, and C locations to meet people, to talk to them about, we even asked to go to companies to talk to them about how the art market works. And we're just, you know, a fraction of the art market. And I really hope through not only this experience and this initiative that a lot of other international galleries will move here and other auction houses, because that's how you create a market. It starts small, but as we're going to educate more and more people through all these initiatives and partnering up with hopefully some of our partners here, which are either governmental or not, to make sure that we're sharing whatever the sort of local audience is wanting and giving them the attention they need.
And so looking ahead of this inaugural sale, what do you envision for Sotheby's role in Saudi Arabia and the broader Middle East? I know Sotheby's recently received a significant investment from the Abu Dhabi-based sovereign wealth fund, ADQ. Does that play a role in shaping the strategy for the region?
Absolutely. I think a few things. We're at the forefront of one of the major auction houses being in the Middle East. We have a very strong team here that's growing and growing. Yes, we should see the Middle East per country, but also it's one big block for us, which we're heavily invested in. Abu Dhabi, first of all, super exciting. Hopefully I hope in the near future, either do more there, whether it's auctions, whether it's exhibitions. But we're very invested now, given our new partners and investors. And I think we want to do a lot there. We want to develop the market. You know, the focus has always been on Dubai and Sharjah in terms of the market itself. So what can we do in Abu Dhabi? I think that those are the big questions we're asking ourselves. Saudi Arabia, you know, we just incorporated. We're hiring an office manager, and hopefully more experts will move here. So we're just at the beginning. I'm not sure what the 5-year plan is, but what we know is we want to do more, bigger and better. And we're now sort of starting with this, collecting data, understanding what are the needs to then develop our platform here and grow. But we want to be part of sort of reshaping the art market here. We want to be part of the journey. We want to do more, and it takes time. But we're invested in Dubai, we're invested in Qatar, we're invested in Abu Dhabi, we're invested in Saudi, and as long as we bring the right talent here and the right people, I think we're well positioned to grow.
Ashkan, thanks so much again for coming on to the podcast and helping us preview your upcoming Origins auction on February 8th, as well as sharing your really valuable insights on everything happening there in the art scene in the region. If our listeners want to learn more about the upcoming auction, where can they visit?
Sotheby's.com, and then just click Origins in the search tab and you'll have the whole sale. You can go in the filters to decide if you're interested with the fine arts or with the luxury items, but they're all in the same sale bucket. So you can just scroll down and enjoy. And we're here from this Saturday night till next Saturday, the 8th, every day from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. in our exhibition space in Diriyah Terraces, which is facing the historical Diriyah UNESCO World Heritage Site. So a really incredible location for us to be exhibiting, and please come see us.
Perfect. Best of luck with the auction, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Adam. Take care. Bye-bye.